We don't begin a new year because the calendar changes. We begin a new year because we decide to change. 2026 is not asking you to work harder. It's asking you to work with intention. The problem isn't that you failed in the past. The problem is that you kept carrying yesterday's habits into today's opportunities. Reset means letting go of routines that no longer serve you, letting go of expectations that were never yours to begin with. Letting go of the noise that convinced you being busy was the same as being productive. You don't need a perfect plan to reset. You need honesty about what drains you, honesty about what distracts you, honesty about what no longer aligns with who you are becoming. Restart doesn't mean starting from zero. It means starting from experience. Every mistake taught you something. Every delay built patience. Every setback strengthened your awareness. A restart is not an apology to the past, it's a commitment to the future. It's choosing to show up again, not because it's easy, but because your purpose is bigger than your comfort. And then comes refocus, the most overlooked step of all. Focus is not about doing more. Focus is about doing what matters. When you refocus, you stop chasing everything and start committing to something. You stop reacting and start leading. You stop waiting for motivation and start acting from discipline. In 2026, clarity will beat intensity, consistency will beat talent, purpose will beat pressure. You don't need to know every step. You just need to know the direction. Reset your standards, restart your effort, refocus your energy, because the next version of your life doesn't begin when you feel ready. It begins the moment you decide not to settle anymore. 2026 isn't a fresh start by chance. It's a fresh start by choice, and the choice is yours, starting now. Most people don't realize that the biggest obstacle to growth is not a lack of motivation, opportunity, or talent, but the quiet routines they repeat every day without questioning them. Habits are powerful because they run in the background of our lives, shaping our decisions long before we consciously make them. What once helped you survive, stay safe, or move forward can slowly become the very thing that holds you back. Resetting your habits is not about self-criticism or regret. It is about awareness. It begins with the courage to pause and ask whether the way you live, think, and commit your time still reflects the person you are trying to become. Many routines start with good intentions. Waking up late once becomes a pattern. Saying yes to everything becomes an identity. Checking your phone first thing in the morning becomes normal. Over time, these small actions build a structure around your life, and that structure quietly decides your future. The danger is not in the habit itself, but in the fact that it was never redesigned as you evolved. Growth demands alignment, and alignment requires letting go of what no longer fits. You cannot step into a new season while clinging to behaviors designed for an old one. Thoughts can become habits too. The stories you tell yourself repeatedly shape how you show up in the world. If you've been rehearsing doubt, fear, or comparison, those thoughts become automatic responses instead of temporary feelings. Resetting your habits means interrupting these patterns and choosing a different internal dialogue. It means replacing "this is just who I am" with "this is what I've practiced." When you realize that habits are learned, you also realize they can be unlearned. That understanding alone creates freedom. Commitments deserve the same level of honesty. Not every responsibility you carry is necessary, and not every expectation placed on you is fair. Overcommitting doesn't make you reliable, it makes you exhausted. Some commitments were made out of fear of disappointing others, not out of alignment with your values. Resetting your habits requires the strength to say no, not because you lack capacity, but because you respect your direction. Energy is limited, and every yes to something misaligned is a no to something meaningful. Letting go can feel uncomfortable because habits create familiarity even when they create stagnation, but discomfort is often a signal that growth is near. When you reset your habits, you create space to think clearly, space to act deliberately, space to build routines that support who you are becoming, not who you used to be. Progress doesn't come from adding more to your life. It comes from removing what no longer serves it. The moment you choose to release outdated routines, unhelpful thoughts, and draining commitments, you don't lose stability. You gain direction. And direction, when paired with consistent action, changes everything. Holding on to the past often feels like responsibility, as if replaying mistakes will somehow prevent them from happening again. But regret is not a teacher, it is a weight. The past cannot be changed, revised, or negotiated with, yet many people live as if yesterday still has authority over today. Releasing the past does not mean forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't matter. It means refusing to let old moments control new decisions. When you stop carrying regret, you create space for clarity, and clarity allows experience to finally serve you instead of sabotage you. Every experience you've had, especially the difficult ones, was shaping something in you. Failures sharpen awareness, loss builds perspective, disappointments expose what truly matters. The problem begins when lessons turn into labels. A failed attempt becomes "I'm not good enough." A wrong decision becomes "I always mess things up." Over time, these conclusions harden into identity. Releasing the past means separating what happened from who you are. What you experienced was an event, not a definition. When you understand that, the past stops being a verdict and becomes data. Experience is only an advantage when you use it forward. Too often, people look back to punish themselves instead of prepare themselves. They replay conversations, imagine better outcomes, and criticize choices made with the knowledge they have now, not the knowledge they had then. That is not growth. It is self-sabotage. You did the best you could with the awareness, tools, and circumstances available at the time. Growth is not demanding perfection from your past self. It is offering compassion and extracting wisdom from the journey. When you carry regret, you hesitate, you second guess, you avoid opportunities because you fear repeating old mistakes. But when you carry lessons, you move with confidence. You recognize patterns earlier. You set boundaries faster. You trust your instincts more deeply. Experience sharpens judgment, but only if you stop reliving the pain and start applying the insight. The goal is not to erase the past, but to place it where it belongs, behind you, informing your steps, not blocking your path. Letting go of regret also changes how you view time. Instead of seeing life as a series of missed chances, you begin to see it as preparation. Nothing was wasted if it taught you something that moves you forward now. The strength you have today was built in moments you once wished never happened. Releasing the past means honoring those moments without being trapped in them. It means choosing progress over punishment and growth over guilt. When you allow experience to become your advantage, you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "How can this serve me now?" That shift changes everything. You move lighter, think clearer, and act with purpose. The past loses its grip, not because it no longer matters, but because it has finally done its job. Starting again often feels heavy because people believe a restart must fix everything at once. The pressure to get it right, to move fast, and to prove something turns a fresh beginning into another source of stress. But a true restart is not fueled by urgency or fear. It is guided by intention. Intention brings calm where pressure creates panic. When you begin again with clarity, you are no longer reacting to what went wrong before, you are responding to what you now understand. Clarity starts with knowing why you are restarting. Not because the world expects it, not because time is running out, but because you've recognized a misalignment. When effort and direction no longer match, exhaustion follows. Restarting with intention means deciding where your energy belongs before deciding how to use it. It's the difference between motion and progress. Without clarity, movement becomes noise. With clarity, even small steps carry meaning. Perfection is often disguised as discipline, but in reality, it's fear wearing a productive mask. Waiting to feel fully ready delays action. Demanding flawless plans creates paralysis. An intentional restart accepts imperfection as part of the process. It understands that clarity grows through movement, not before it. You don't need the perfect routine, the perfect mindset, or the perfect moment. You need a clear reason and a willingness to adjust as you go. Progress comes from commitment, not precision. Pressure makes people rush. Clarity helps people pace themselves. When you restart under pressure, you copy others, chase timelines that aren't yours, and measure success by speed instead of alignment. An intentional restart allows you to move at a rhythm that is sustainable. It prioritizes consistency over intensity and direction over comparison. This kind of beginning may look slow from the outside, but it is strong on the inside, built to last rather than impress. Beginning again with intention also changes how you speak to yourself. Instead of criticism, there is curiosity. Instead of judgment, there is reflection. You stop asking why you failed and start asking what you learned. This shift creates emotional stability, which is essential for long-term change. When the mind is calm, decisions become clearer. When decisions are clear, action becomes natural rather than forced. A restart rooted in clarity creates ownership. You are no longer trying to escape the past or prove your worth. You are building something that aligns with who you are now. That alignment brings confidence, not because the path is easy, but because it is honest. You trust yourself more when your actions reflect your values. Each step reinforces belief, and belief fuels momentum. Starting again is not a setback, it is a strategy. When done with intention, it becomes an act of leadership over your own life. You don't begin again to erase the past, but to honor what it taught you. With clarity as your guide, you move forward without rushing, without forcing, and without pretending to be perfect. You move forward grounded, focused, and ready to build something real. Busyness has become a substitute for progress. Many people fill their days with endless tasks, messages, and obligations, believing that constant movement equals meaningful achievement. But doing everything often leads to doing nothing well. Energy gets scattered, attention weakens, and the most important goals are quietly neglected. Refocusing on what matters is not about becoming less active. It is about becoming more intentional. It requires the discipline to distinguish between what feels urgent and what is actually important. When everything is treated as a priority, nothing truly is. The mind becomes reactive, jumping from one demand to the next, leaving little room for deep thought or purposeful action. Over time, this creates frustration and burnout, not because you aren't capable, but because your focus is divided. Refocusing begins with the willingness to pause and evaluate where your time and energy are going. It means asking whether your daily actions are moving you closer to your long-term direction or merely keeping you occupied. Doing the right things often feels uncomfortable because it involves trade-offs. It requires saying no to good opportunities so you can say yes to meaningful ones. It asks you to let go of distractions that provide quick satisfaction but no lasting value. This is difficult in a world that rewards visibility and speed over depth and substance. But real progress is rarely loud. It happens quietly through consistent attention to what truly moves the needle. Refocus also demands clarity of values. When you are clear about what matters most, decisions become simpler. You no longer need to debate every choice or seek constant validation. Your priorities act as a filter, guiding your actions and protecting your energy. Without this filter, you end up reacting to everyone else's expectations, slowly drifting away from your own purpose. Refocusing brings you back to alignment, where effort feels meaningful rather than draining. Another challenge is the fear of missing out. Letting go of doing everything can feel like you are falling behind or losing relevance. But focus is not limitation, it is leverage. When you concentrate on the right things, you create momentum. Skills deepen, results compound, and confidence grows. Progress accelerates not because you are doing more, but because you are doing what matters consistently and with intention. Refocusing on what matters also changes how you measure success. Instead of counting how busy you are, you begin to evaluate the impact of your actions. You look at outcomes, not activity. This shift brings a sense of control and clarity. You are no longer at the mercy of endless demands. You are leading your time instead of reacting to it. Each day becomes an opportunity to invest energy where it counts most. When you stop trying to do everything, you regain focus, presence, and purpose. The noise fades, the path becomes clearer, and your actions start to align with your goals. Refocusing is not about shrinking your ambition, it is about directing it. By choosing the right things over everything, you create space for meaningful progress and lasting fulfillment. Motivation is often treated like the engine of success, but in reality, it is unreliable and unpredictable. It comes and goes, influenced by mood, environment, and circumstances beyond your control. Building your life around motivation means building on something temporary. Consistency, on the other hand, does not depend on how you feel. It depends on what you decide. Choosing consistency over motivation is the shift from emotional action to intentional discipline, and that shift is what quietly shapes the course of an entire year. Small disciplined actions may not feel impressive in the moment. They don't create instant transformation or dramatic results, but they create stability, and stability creates momentum. When you show up every day, even in small ways, you build trust with yourself. That trust becomes confidence, not the loud kind fueled by excitement, but the calm kind rooted in reliability. You begin to know that regardless of circumstances, you will do what you said you would do, and that certainty becomes a powerful force. Motivation often encourages all or nothing thinking. When you feel inspired, you push hard. When the feeling fades, you stop completely. This cycle leads to inconsistency, frustration, and self-doubt. Consistency breaks that cycle by lowering the barrier to action. Instead of asking how motivated you feel, you ask what the next small step is. Progress becomes manageable, repeatable, and sustainable. Over time, these small actions accumulate into results that motivation alone could never maintain. Discipline is often misunderstood as restriction, but true discipline is freedom. It frees you from relying on moods and external validation. It allows you to act even when conditions are not perfect. Choosing consistency means designing systems that support your goals, not depending on willpower. When actions become routine, resistance decreases. What once required effort becomes automatic, and growth becomes part of your daily life rather than a temporary phase. The impact of consistency is rarely visible at first. Days may pass where it feels like nothing is changing. But beneath the surface, something important is happening. Skills are sharpening, habits are strengthening, identity is forming. You are becoming the kind of person who shows up, regardless of excitement or recognition. That identity, built through repetition, is far more powerful than bursts of motivation that fade with time. Over a year, the difference between consistent effort and occasional motivation is dramatic. One compounds quietly, the other resets repeatedly. Small disciplined actions repeated daily reshape your mindset, your results, and your self-respect. They turn intentions into outcomes and goals into realities. Choosing consistency is choosing long-term progress over short-term emotion. It is the decision to build a year defined not by how inspired you felt, but by how faithfully you acted. Many people spend their lives waiting for the right feeling before they act. They wait to feel confident, ready, motivated, or fearless, believing that action should follow emotion. But feelings are unstable by nature. They shift with mood, circumstances, and comfort. If change depends on feeling ready, change will always be delayed. Real transformation begins not with emotion, but with a decision. A decision is firm, deliberate, and independent of how you feel in the moment. Waiting often disguises itself as preparation. You tell yourself you're gathering information, thinking things through, or waiting for better timing. In reality, waiting is usually fear asking for permission to stay in control. It keeps you in familiar territory, safe from failure but also far from growth. Deciding interrupts that pattern. A decision creates movement. It draws a line between where you are and where you are willing to go, even if the path ahead is unclear. Feelings follow action, not the other way around. Confidence grows after you take steps, not before. Motivation strengthens once progress begins. Clarity sharpens through experience, not contemplation. When you decide first, you give your mind something solid to work with. Action turns uncertainty into feedback, and feedback turns confusion into understanding. Waiting keeps everything hypothetical. Deciding makes it real. A decision does not require certainty, it requires commitment. You don't need to know every outcome or guarantee success. You only need to choose direction. Once a decision is made, energy shifts, focus improves, distractions lose power. Even obstacles begin to look different, not as signs to stop, but as problems to solve. Deciding gives structure to effort and purpose to struggle. Many people confuse decision with pressure. They fear that choosing means locking themselves into perfection or permanent outcomes, but a true decision is flexible in method, not in intent. You can adjust strategy, pace, and approach, but the direction remains steady. Waiting, on the other hand, keeps you stuck in indecision, constantly restarting mentally, but never moving physically. Decisions also shape identity. Every time you decide and act, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of leading your own life. That belief compounds. You stop seeing yourself as someone waiting for circumstances to change and start seeing yourself as someone who creates change. This shift builds self-respect, and self-respect fuels consistency. Over time, your actions begin to align naturally with your goals because you trust your ability to choose and follow through. Real change is rarely dramatic at the start. It often begins quietly, with a single choice made despite uncertainty or discomfort. That decision may feel small, but it sets everything else in motion. Waiting keeps potential trapped in thought. Deciding releases it into action. The moment you choose, you step out of hesitation and into ownership. And from that point forward, progress is no longer about how you feel, but about what you've decided to build. So as this year moves forward, remember this: you don't need permission to change. You don't need the perfect moment, the perfect mindset, or the perfect plan. What you need is the courage to let go of what no longer serves you and the discipline to commit to what truly matters. Reset what drains you. Release what weighs you down. Restart with clarity, not pressure. Refocus on the few things that actually move your life forward. Choose consistency over fleeting motivation and decide, without waiting, who you are becoming, because your future will not be shaped by how you felt on your best days, but by what you chose to do on your ordinary one. Change doesn't arrive with noise or certainty. It arrives the moment you stop waiting and start leading yourself. And when you make that decision, fully and honestly, the year ahead stops being just another chapter and becomes the turning point.